That's why I don't carry my radio. You know, I think 6 months ago, no. Everybody in 6 months ago, no. Because no. That's why 3 years they come back. They just like rain off. You're just taking the long. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, but now. No. Yeah. I think we will. No. Yeah, I called it back. He's like, oh, I'm next to the PG anyway. I'm like, all right, dude, I'll see you about you. There was no. Really? Yeah, that's good. I would have to give it cut. Yeah, I mean, you know, I looked up because well, James Vowles came from Mercedes, got like that. From their customers. Yeah. And after market, they better do something wrong. Not this year. They need to get rid of. They got about 8 now. Oh, no Fred, huh? They got 8. They got what? 8. Okay. Oh yeah, Newly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I was thinking general. Cool, thanks. No, he wasn't. Yeah. You want to get over here when you ask a question. I realize that. They look at you. Do you want me to? Wow. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No matter what. It's so far from the scene that nothing barely even saw that. It's like they had a fairly decent
I just start. I mean, I put it on.
So I imagine you were back when I was either 2 or NBC that have. But the city of the track, I'm not right there.
I just do the whole soundbite. They've got it.
Oh, you can. Oh, you said that they cut it because.
Right. I mean, like B-roll stuff.
Yeah, that's like
they get all the sound bites and they get to decide. Exactly.
So how many of you are going to be live at Santana Row?
Good. Pretty day.
You know they're going to kick you out.
Conference.
I don't know. Get a card? Yeah, we need a card.
No, but they won't even let you on the property.
No, that place.
So we'll go across the street. Santana Row.
I live there.
No, you drive up
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they tell you to where.
And then the garage part of you. I do it anyway, and the garages are big now. After the time.
Well,
Probably that 2 hours up because
Here's something
you show up with this. Yeah, downstairs. Two people going down.
Gangs roaming in Santana Row.
They're working people won't be happy with that.
Yes.
I mean, I understand. Oh, really? But in this case, it's not like that kid who they told us was very expensive first, like they think it's tough to turn it. Was it?
I saw somebody with them.
So red is
I live in I have a every
Do you still live in Salinas, right? No.
No. Somebody does it.
So he's.
And I haven't seen
Raphael lives in.
Raphael lives in Salinas.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We'll be starting in a few minutes.
So how long did it take you? About an hour and 10?
No.
55
We're a couple of seconds behind. I'm ran over to the
So
one of the main communications people for
It takes me an hour, but I leave at Robin.
today was the party. I have to go down after. I have to see them at 8 o'clock. They haven't had it at 11:30. They're in the library.
yeah.
Our station. I really want
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's why I thought it was kind
I do that 2 more nights.
Oh, I don't even. Yeah. See, you're south of that, right?
In a nutshell.
That's very downstairs. But you go down.
Or yeah. Or no. I don't go inside. Maybe something.
Oh,
Fucked up.
no, like you don't want to stay
Right there. I shot right there. Yeah.
I just
Right there.
called him because he wanted to get
Yeah, it slows down. I know.
So that takes like 15.
It's going on until 2:30. Is it 1:30?
Yeah.
1:30. That's probably 2 hours. That makes more sense. At through 2:25 to 11.
Yeah.
You just go up that and right in front of you, there'll be a sign that says 225. Conference rooms. Yeah. I think you're right.
I said, how long are you going to be there?
It's not that bad. It's the
I had that talk.
if I'm driving
I'll let him get set up. I'll run. I'll run over and stay by the room.
Yeah.
Down that clear.
Really know that
20 cars that I passed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, how? So we're about ready to start chatting.
It's a new start.
Getting it done. The new start will be in 2 days. All right, good afternoon. Thank you for everybody's patience. Does everybody have sound? We're good? All right. Thank you again for being here. You're going to hear this morning or this afternoon from Chief Joseph, followed by Mayor Matt Mahan, and then we're going to close out with Councilmember Rosemary Kamei. I do ask that you hold all of your questions to the end of the press conference. The Chief will come back up. We'll answer them. I know you may have a lot, so just be patient. If everybody's good, we'll get started. All right, Chief.
Thank you. Good morning. Today, we are announcing the arrests of 5 individuals in connection with the tragic murder of a 15-year-old that occurred on Valentine's Day at Santana Row. On February 14th, the young victim was on a date with his girlfriend when he was confronted by a group of 5 suspected gang members. These individuals, dressed in gang colors, were believed to be actively seeking a confrontation. The group approached the victim, questioned him about his gang involvement, and proceeded to assault him. The victim managed to escape and ran away from the group. However, one of the suspects, a 13-year-old male, pursued him, confronted him again, this time armed with a knife. The 13-year-old suspect brutally stabbed the victim multiple times, resulting in his death. The victim's girlfriend, witnesses, and responding officers all attempted to provide the victim with first aid before he was transported to Valley Medical Center, where he unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. Before officers arrived, all suspects had fled on foot. Through extensive investigation, which included reviewing surveillance footage, gang intelligence, and body-worn camera evidence, detectives identified all 5 suspects and obtained warrants for their arrest. Each of the suspects is believed to be affiliated with a local San Jose street gang. The investigation also revealed that the victim had no gang affiliation whatsoever and was tragically just in the wrong place at the wrong time. On Thursday, February 20th, San Jose Police Department Special Operations teams located and arrested 4 of the 5 individuals responsible for this attack, including a 13-year-old who carried out the fatal stabbing. The 13-year-old male from Campbell who stabbed the victim was booked into juvenile hall for homicide and felony assault. 3 16-year-old males from San Jose were all booked into juvenile hall for felony assault. On Friday, February 21st, Special Operations personnel arrested the 5th suspect, Emmanuel Sanchez Damian, an 18-year-old male from Campbell, who subsequently was booked into county jail for felony assault. This senseless act of violence took the life of a young boy who had no known gang ties and was simply trying to enjoy an evening out. I want to thank all of the dedicated department members who work tirelessly, as they always do, when a life is taken, to bring these suspects to justice. I also want to thank the District Attorney's Office for their partnership and dedication as they continue to pursue justice for the family. This act was as senseless as it is heartbreaking. It was a tragedy that has shaken our community, and it demands that we speak honestly about the challenges we face in our juvenile justice system. 2 of the greatest headwinds we face in keeping this community safe are the proliferation of firearms on our streets and the lack of consequences for juveniles who are increasingly committing more violent crimes without recourse. Following this press conference, the public will largely be prevented from seeing the outcomes of the cases involving the juvenile offenders due to California law. And the public would likely never know that the 13-year-old suspect we arrested, if found guilty of this murder, is likely to see no more than 8 months in an unlocked ranch facility. Juveniles under the age of 14 don't get sent to juvenile hall even for murder. To be clear, I believe California was right to reform the juvenile justice system. Locking up young people for long periods of time for minor offenses does more harm than good. We've learned through research, experience, and community efforts that rehabilitation and second chances must be central goals when dealing with juveniles. However, while we sought to protect our youth from the long-term harms of incarceration for lesser crimes, we've unintentionally created a system that, in certain severe cases like this, provides virtually no meaningful consequences for the most violent and brutal cases. As a result, young offenders who take life, commit murder, or other atrocities face only a few months or maybe a handful of years in custody before they're released back into our neighborhoods. While not speaking about today's case specifically, we also must address the grim reality that under our current system, for some hardened adult criminals, the killing tool of choice is now a juvenile. Adults and gangs are exploiting the leniency of our juvenile justice system, recruiting underage members to commit horrific acts of violence on their behalf. Why? Because they know that a 17-year-old, 15-year-old, or yes, even a 13-year-old is unlikely to face consequences anywhere near as severe as an adult would for the very same crime. An 18-year-old who commits a brutal murder could face 25 years or more in prison.
A 17-year-old who commits that exact same act will serve a small fraction of that time, potentially as low as 2 to 3 years. In the arrest we have announced today, the 13-year-old suspect will likely serve only 6 to 8 months in an unlocked ranch facility. No matter how horrific the murder, all juveniles are mandated by new California law to be released by the age of 25. By taking serious consequences off the table for all juvenile offenses, even murder, the punishment for something as horrific as a school shooting can be so minimal it almost amounts to getting away with murder. We continue to see devastated families left in disbelief, emboldened by the knowledge that, in some cases, 6 months in custody is all the system demands for taking the life of their loved one. I believe the lack of consequences and the devaluation of innocent life are encouraging juveniles to commit violent offenses more frequently. Some recent examples in San Jose are the following. A 16-year-old driving recklessly in a stolen vehicle hit and killed a pedestrian and was sentenced to approximately 60 days in custody and probation. A 16-year-old driving a stolen vehicle crashed into a pole, catching the vehicle on fire and killing 2 juvenile passengers. He received about 6 months in custody and probation. A 15-year-old driving a stolen vehicle ran a red light and collided with a car containing an expectant mother, killing her and her unborn child. He then fled the scene. He served approximately 39 days in custody, received probation, and has since been arrested in another stolen vehicle, recklessly evading the police. A 17-year-old drove a stolen vehicle at a high rate of speed through a stop sign and struck another vehicle, killing the other driver, and fled the scene. He served approximately 30 days in custody and probation. There are 16-year-olds committing armed carjackings. In one case, a 16-year-old intentionally ran a person over with a car and is already out of custody after just 3 months in juvenile hall, while the victim remains hospitalized in critical condition. Juveniles know they will not face serious consequences for serious crimes. They openly brag about it and share their actions on social media for status. While we should never return to the days of relying solely on incarceration, we cannot ignore the alarming reality that our current system is failing to hold juvenile offenders accountable, even when a life is taken. And this lack of accountability is directly making our communities less safe. I'm speaking out because a young life was taken in an act of senseless violence. His life, his family, and our community deserve a system of justice that weighs all the facts and imposes sentences that reflect the gravity of such a brutal crime. True justice is fair and protects victims as well as offenders. A handful of months for taking a life is not justice and will only lead to more serious loss of life. I will now turn it over to the mayor to say a few words. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. First, I want to thank our chief, our officers, detectives, the entire department for working diligently to investigate this tragic case, apprehend the suspects, and do their utmost to deliver justice for the family of the victim and our broader society. Now that they've done their job, it's up to the criminal justice system to figure out how to make sure something like this never happens again. Because, frankly, there's nothing more disturbing than kids killing kids. No kid should go to the mall and be scared that they're not going to make it home. David Gutierrez deserved better. He deserved more time. His life was just beginning. And a day meant to celebrate love, Valentine's Day, quickly turned to hate when a senseless act of violence ended his life. I'm concerned that if we don't change the way our justice system holds young offenders accountable, we may be creating a perverse incentive for gangs to recruit children at younger and younger ages. As the chief just outlined, I thought very compellingly, and I want to thank him again for speaking out, for being clear and direct and honest with the public about the challenges we face in keeping our community safe. We should be able to be open and honest about these challenges. Our worst gangs' weapon of choice is increasingly becoming children. They're handing kids the gun, the knife, the bag of stolen goods because they know they will face little consequence. About 30% of gang-related incidents over the past few months were committed by kids under 18, including aggravated assault, weapons charges, and robbery. Of course, in this case, murder. The 13-year-old suspect in this case, as you heard, will likely not go to juvenile hall, not face time in a locked facility, and very well may not learn the value of the life he chose to take. So let me be clear, echoing the chief's comments, kids should not be locked up for tagging a building or stealing a candy bar, but they should understand the ramifications of taking a life. And just as importantly, the older people who are using kids as murder weapons should be held responsible for ending one life and ruining others. The bottom line is we need a better way to hold young people and their accomplices accountable, to deliver justice and to make sure they know the consequences of their actions. Because if gangs believe that initiating kids as members is a way to commit violence without consequences, we've created a dangerous loophole that makes our children even greater targets. In addition to ensuring real consequences for kids who commit murder and those who push them into a life of crime, we need to double down on what is working. Our San Jose Youth Empowerment Alliance, formerly known as the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force, has shown some promising results. Last year, our programs delivered a 17.5% reduction in school incidents through the Safe School Campus Initiative, an 86% success rate in the Clean Slate Tattoo Removal Program, and 140 job placements for at-risk youth through SJ Works. But clearly, we need to do more. Whether that's changes and additional investments we make at the city level or advocacy to our county and state, this horrible murder is yet another reminder that protecting our children and investing in them is one of the best things we can do to create a safer city for all. I'm going to say just a few words in Spanish, and then I'll turn the mic over to my colleague. Quiero agradecer al jefe Joseph y a la policía por su trabajo para arrestar a los sospechosos. La víctima, David Gutiérrez, merecía algo mejor. Su familia merece justicia. Con más frecuencia, las pandillas reclutan nuestros niños. Necesitamos una mejor manera de hacer responsables a los jóvenes que cometen delitos graves y sus socios. Proteger a nuestros niños es la mejor inversión que podemos hacer para crear una ciudad más segura. Gracias. Thank you again. Now I'm going to turn things over to Councilmember Rosemary Kamei, who also represents, along with me, the area in which this horrible crime was committed. Councilmember.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. You know, as a mother, a grandmother of 5, and community representative of the San Jose District 1, where this incident occurred, I'm truly saddened by this tragedy and offer my deepest condolences to the family of this young victim. 15 years old is entirely too young. Santana Row and District 1 are historically very safe areas with low incidence of violence. As a result, this crime is truly shocking and underscores that we must do more for violence prevention. I and my colleagues are committed to working with law enforcement and community organizations to that end. My profound thanks on behalf of myself and the West San Jose community to all San Jose PD and all involved in being able to participate in the investigation and apprehension of the suspects. Their work really does make our community safer, and thank you for that. Como madre y abuela de 5 nietos y representante de la comunidad del Distrito número 1 en San José, donde ocurrió este incidente, estoy realmente triste por esta tragedia y ofrezco mis más sentido pésame a la familia de este joven víctima. 15 años es demasiado joven. Santana Row y el Distrito número 1 son históricamente áreas muy seguras con baja incidencia de la violencia. Como resultado, este crimen es realmente impactante y subraya que todos debemos hacer más para prevenir la violencia. Estoy comprometida con mis compañeros de la ciudad a trabajar con las fuerzas del orden y las organizaciones comunitarias con este fin. Mi profundo agradecimiento de mi parte y de la comunidad del oeste de San José a todos los miembros de la policía involucrados en la investigación y aprehensión de los sospechosos. Su trabajo nos hace todos más seguros. Y muchísimas gracias. Now I'll turn it over to Chief and the Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right, any questions?
Yes,
Yes,
Chief,
David.
given what you said, is it safe to say that the other 4 suspects are out of custody now?
I'm not sure of the custody status of each of the suspects. We can follow up with the PIOs afterwards.
Can you confirm this was an initiation, probably because of due to the ages and the circumstances?
I can't confirm that. All I could tell you is that, we have 5 suspects, 1 of whom is an adult, 4 of whom are juveniles, and the stabber, the most serious offender of the bunch, is the youngest member of that group.
How concerning it is that we cannot even wear either blue or red just because there's people or young kids out on the streets seeking opportunity to fight someone else just to, get into these gangs, probably. Because I know he was wearing red shoes, and that was probably why he was targeted.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is a totally random attack. This young man had no gang affiliation, no problems with law enforcement, and didn't initiate any contact with these suspects. He wasn't doing anything wrong, and that's kind of the point of our comments today is, first of all, it's a horrible tragedy, and I feel terrible for him and his family that will have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. But there needs to be some thought given to protecting young individuals, all of us, from people that are willing to commit acts of violence, and especially when they know that there won't be consequences.
The mayor touched on it. Are there any mechanisms in place to go after the leaders who may have ordered this to happen, whether it was an initiation or an actual, go ahead and do this?
So anyone responsible for this crime, anybody that our investigation shows is responsible for this crime, we will work to identify and hold accountable. At this time, we believe we have the people responsible for this crime in custody.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is the juveniles, what you're saying, are somewhat, lack of a better word, protected because they're so young. But what about the ones, even if you only get the juveniles, can you go after the leaders?
It's kind of that's a difficult question to answer. It's pretty fact specific. Anybody who's directly responsible for the homicide could potentially be charged with homicide, and that's just that's something that the investigation would have to show, and we would have to be able to establish with the district attorney and ultimately in a court of law.
Following up on that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just to add just a quick perspective, I think part of what I was getting at in my comments is, given that we are seeing a trend toward recruitment of younger and younger children to participate in the activities of organized criminal gangs, I think the state, which has passed the limitations that the chief's referencing, I think our state representatives who are lawmakers need to think hard about the incentives we're creating and consider not just additional accountability for young people committing serious crime like murder. And that doesn't necessarily mean they need to go to state prison, but what is an alternative locked facility, some alternative accountability that's a deterrent and is a true consequence. But I also believe that we need to look again at whether or not we have the appropriate enhancements for the adults who are recruiting them and turning them into effectively murder weapons. And I'm not sure, I don't know, and we'll see what information we get as this case plays out, but are we sufficiently holding accountable the adults who are using this loophole effectively and very intentionally going down to middle schools in our city and school districts across the state and recruiting 12 and 13-year-olds because they know they'll face no consequence? There needs to be accountability on both sides of that. I'm not sure that our current state laws, in fact, I'm pretty confident they don't create sufficient accountability, particularly for those adults who are recruiting our kids to be murder weapons.
Following up on that one, on that question, I mean, you're saying that these gang prevention programs have given results, which is great, but kids are not the problem. You're helping them, but what is the city doing to hold the adults accountable? Because those are the leaders that are recruiting these kids to do so.
Like I said, I think the mayor touched on a couple things there. One is there need to be greater consequences for really serious and violent crimes, regardless of the age of the offender. We need to do a better job of holding anyone accountable that's an adult that directs a child to commit a crime. And this is part of a larger framework. We've gone to, especially with the juvenile justice system, the state laws have gone to kind of a one-size-fits-all approach, and it doesn't really take into account some of the individualized factors in a particular crime. And so while we obviously agree in rehabilitation and trying to turn a young person's life around, there are some offenses that are just so serious. There needs to be a focus with a little bit more balance towards protecting public safety and providing some justice for a victim and their family.
And we're seeing is people coming from other cities to commit crimes in San Jose. Because you mentioned from Campbell, the victim was not even from here.
Right, but I mean, this is a statewide issue, not just related to San Jose or to Campbell. This is something that needs to probably be corrected throughout the state of California.
All right. If nobody has any other questions, you can always email me, and we will be sending out a press release right here at 12:30. It'll have the PFN photo of the one adult that was arrested here, and has a little bit more information I will share with the chief. I appreciate everybody coming, and see you on the next one. Thank you. Did you walk out?